All right, thank you for staying with us. We still see a lot of your feedback coming through on hashtag Monday Report at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Mudoni, you're finishing your thoughts on the teacher-student ratio and why you think schools should just be reopened anyway.
Yes, and I was saying, Trevor, that we really have to make a case for children. And what is this continued staying at home doing to the children? It might be some damage that's probably country we are going to be grappling with. In fact, Trevor, this country experienced an unprecedented rate of pregnancies. We want to say that one girl is one too many. Look at what is school to many children in this country. School means nutrition, school means protection, and so on and so forth. So when we're looking at all these issues, we may not want to just look at it from a perspective. We look at it globally. What are we talking about? We are talking about losing about 16% of the investments that were in basic education. That is what we're talking about losing. And therefore, yet, as we speak now, having this discussion today is not like having it in April when the pandemic was and the numbers were high and so on. So at least now we're at a safer place of saying, what is the evidence telling us? And two, there are all these preparations. How have we prepared ourselves? And can we even face it out and say, can we begin with the most marginalized? Because I am telling you, there are people whose lives, their children whose lives are not going to be the same again post this pandemic. And therefore, we really need to relook at all that. Against, I agree with Sosion and I agree with my brother Otoa that there is some level of preparation that needs to be done. But we cannot address press in March and say that we are preparing schools. We address press again today in September and we still say that we are preparing schools. There needs to be some level of accountability of saying we are left with 10% preparation for us to be made so that even parents begin psychologically preparing themselves. Because all statements we continue to make, how are parents going to view it? Are parents prepared? The government needs to be now releasing messages that will make parents and children even prepared to accept schools as safe places for their children. But the more we continue alarming and saying we are waiting for this, even parents themselves will not feel safe to take their children to school. Yet, that's what is happening in our neighborhood. Not what is happening in Tanzania. It's not what is happening. And it is not even what the World Health Organization is guiding us to do.
Okay. Honorable Sosion, there's a question here that keeps coming up. The government released money for the payment of BOM teachers. Almost all of them talking to me here on Twitter have not been paid. Where is the problem?
I think that statement was put to rest by the CS today with an assurance that that is being done. And you see, once there is government commitment, and of course, the rest are the processes of payment, and when the money will hit the account, that should really rest the matter. A lot of issues have come up out of this COVID, and there's been bing-bong criticism across the board about teacher numbers. It's a big issue, and of course, we agree going into the future, we should safeguard over large numbers of classes, and that is a long-term requirement that we need to work into. Issues of infrastructure and others is the salaries of the BOM teachers. But that has been put to rest, and as a responsible union leader, I'm convinced those teachers will be paid, and therefore this should not be an issue.
How soon,
of debate.
You've always been the fighter for teachers. How soon will they be paid?
On this one, I'm convinced the processes are underway, and government is committed, and that work, these teachers will be paid.
How soon?
It should not be an issue of contestations and debate. Let's go back to how soon are schools going to open? And we've heard of issues of parents ready. Every parent should be ready all the time to have the children back to school. They should be ready any moment, any time. If the curve is flattened for more than 14 days, why should children stay at home? What is it that we are still waiting for? And I want to allay the fears of Janet Muthoni. We really don't need to use a lot of pressure as to when schools will open. If already we are registering declined numbers, the positivity rate coming below 5%, that is telling us it is already ringing a bell that children should prepare to go back to school, and and the parents should prepare, because I am sure if the curve comes down to if the positivity rate per day even comes to 2%, and it gets so low, what reason shall we have keeping children at home? What if the minister comes up tomorrow and tells us that the curve has been flattened and therefore children should go back to school? Why are we thinking that it is impossible to prepare schools? How much does it cost to prepare water sources within the school and sanitation, and of course mask? That is it. Let me assure Kenyans, from what the minister has done and what we have seen him doing, he has done a lot to ensure that schools and learning institutions are prepared for reopening. This is what Kenyans are not seeing. And I want to encourage Janet Muthoni. The minister has been working. Everybody has been working. The stakeholders have been consulting. They are going on consulting, looking at applying their minds critically on what best to do scientifically, without being emotional and without being political. And we don't need to look for evidence of why children had to stay at home. When we had 600 cases per day, that was enough worry. And we had deaths spiking, that was enough worry. And of course, the medical advice has been very clear. 14 consecutive days, positivity rate coming below 5%.
Okay.
Now we have seen, the question is, what are we doing to prepare each and every institution to receive learners? And when we resume, how are we going to admit the learners? And of course also monitor the schools reopening. It must be monitored. It is not something that we are going to work automatically. It's not a switch on, switch off affair. We are going to do this thing in a different environment. The boards of management must be prepared. The teachers must also be prepared. And now where we are is preparation phase. Thorough preparation. So we should not be debating if by law, the minister is mandated to announce closure and reopening of schools. And because of the magnitude of this nature, the other arms of government, and the president has been very kind to us, and we must salute the president of the republic, because unlike other governments where schools have been forced to reopen, we have been allowed in the country to debate democratically within the sector on the basis of the guidelines of the Ministry of Health. And I must salute the Ministry of Health and the medical experts. They've been honest with information.
Well noted.
Even when we collected the different data from the different groups, they've always converged to a very factual position. And where we are at the moment, because I've given the data from the medical team of KNUT, and it seems it's going to coincide
with the one from the Ministry of Health. That's agreeable. All right,
and therefore, and that's why we are telling our teachers, wherever you are, warm up. If the minister or government shall pronounce that schools will open, we will go back to school. We are ready to receive the children. We are ready to work overtime, and we are ready to do what is necessary. Because the loss of about 6 months is not going to be easy. We shall deal with this time that has been lost for a long time, and we need to bring all the children to exactly the timing where they're supposed to exist, the different level, and that is the preparation we need.
You've made your point, Honorable Sosion. Let me bring in now questions from the people.
Right now, the
Honorable Sosion, you've already made your point on that. It's time to prepare and monitor.
But
I have to bring in questions from the people. Honorable Sosion,
I think it has to come
Honorable Sosion, hold that thought. Thank you so much. You've made your point on this. So, Indimuli Kahi, who's the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, is telling me here that the cash for the Board of Management teachers was credited to school accounts today. There might be some bank's delay, but the process is on. Having said that, and having heard from him, because he's part of the COVID-19 Education Response Committee, he says that they have until Friday to advise the CS on the reopening of dates. But put that aside, let's bring in what the people are saying, and I'll take two of them at a time, and I'll kindly ask you to keep your response very brief. Let's take two questions at a time. Let's bring them up.
Towards the reopening of schools, I think it's about time for schools to be reopened. We are seeing politicians going around politicking while the country is at stand. So I think it's about time that we reopen the economy and the school.
And my question goes to Mr. Sosioni. Mr. Sosioni, are you ready now to support the CS for Education to reopen up the schools before January 2021, since you have been completely opposing that?
Honorable Sosion?
Yes, thank you, Trevor, for those two questions. And one is a comment.
Yeah.
But is it about time to reopen schools? And I think I've stated, and Kenyans and all of us should be very clear about it. It is not a time that the minister would fix for reopening or time that anybody would fix.
Okay.
It is about the curve flattening. And we have seen consistent figures. Let us put our fingers crossed that it is not going to rise again above the 5%. Because if it does rise above 5%, it is going to complicate the planning. Let us pray and put our fingers crossed that Kenyans are going to behave, maintain the protocol measures so that the curve can be, the positivity rate can be suppressed below 5%. Am I ready to support the minister or oppose? We don't oppose. I've not been opposing the minister. We speak, in fact, on this matter of COVID-19. We agree very, very strongly with the minister, and we shall agree very, very strongly with the minister on this. And since we are all working together, and all the pronouncement that the minister makes is with our invaluable input. So whatever time that will be decided, whatever time that will be pronounced, definitely Kenyans should know it has our input. And that is why we are urging parents, prepare. Stop keeping money and stop spending money in other areas.
You keep saying prepare like you're... You keep saying prepare so many times as if the schools are going to reopen before January because the parents already had a figure.
No. If the curve, we have seen the figure, the data's on the curve. If tomorrow positivity rate will be at 2% for the next 15 days, what business do you have keeping children at home? Because that is a guideline. The guideline is the data. Trevor, we are seeing the data. And this is where the media has to come out. Can we now subject Kenyans to look at the data with both eyes and look at the trend? And the moment it is more than 14 days, what business do you have keeping children at home? They've suffered long enough. They will have to go back to school. And if they have to go back to school, the schools must be prepared. And that is why we are urging all parties. Now that the minister has done a lot, and the team at the education sector has done a lot, the Ministry of Health have done a lot, we now have a duty to prepare ourselves.
That's clear. Let's bring up other questions.
Learners can get back to school.
All right, let's bring up another two questions.
Why is the government not reopening universities and colleges, considering that people in universities are grown-ups who are able to keep the COVID-19 rules? They're able to social distance, they're able to wash their hands, they can take the precautions that the Minister of Health has given.
The curve is flattening, and really it is time to go back to school. But have they thought about the parents' preparation, maybe to have their kids back to school? Because we understand right now that most people lost their jobs and people don't have money and people are struggling. And when the CS for Education declared there's a lost year, many parents literally ate the school fees and they don't have fees to pay. So what is the plan? How do they plan to take care of that?
Janet, have you thought about the parents when we say schools should reopen? Some of them have lost their jobs. They don't have the money to take their students back to school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to really be a very difficult time. And I know right now it's not only the government that is thinking about the dilemma. As the participator just said, a lot of people have lost their jobs, and that does not only affect parents, it also affects children, because I know there are children that have been sleeping hungry. So there's really quite a lot of preparation that needs to be done, not only in the schools, but also to psychosocially support parents and communities. But I think the most critical thing we are saying is that, and I think Honorable Sosio needs to understand, nobody is saying that the minister has done a lot. He has done a lot. We do appreciate. And nobody is really questioning why schools had to be closed. All of us were around. But we are saying today, as we speak today, there does not exist overwhelming evidence for why schools should remain closed.
Okay.
That is the point we are making tonight. So I think alongside other preparations, and I would really be keen to hear and listen, what are the school fees guidelines that the minister is going to be giving? Because again, that is going to block out. There is an issue that needs to be looked at. I know there are so many children, even if the schools were open tomorrow, there are children who will not report because their parents probably will not be able to be affording. What is the government thinking about now being so much proactive about the policy of free-day secondary school? How is the government funding, the publicly funded education? Because as the participator there has said, there is a lot of distress. And so in as much as we are thinking about sanitation facilities, as much as we are thinking about expanding the physical infrastructure, there is a software of education that also we want to hear how well are the parents, is the government preparing to ensure that no child is really going to be left behind post-COVID.
Okay, let's bring up two more questions.
I think it will be a good idea for the schools to be reopened only for the candidates. The rest of the learners to begin afresh come next year, 2021, God willing. Thank you.
My question goes to CS. They are talking about making desks worth 1.9 billion. After making those desks, where are they taking those desks? Well, they are not yet built in a classroom where those desks will be taken. My second question is about 1 billion, which they are saying it will be used to make a mask, knowing they will be given to small children.
Honorable Sosion, where are you taking the desks if there are no classrooms?
Yeah, thank you. All preparations are essential, very essential. If the commitment to avail desks at 1.9 billion and the desks are actually availed, it is going to supplement the learning equipment that are required in schools. So really, for us, this is a welcome arrangement by government. And we know there is also continuous funding of infrastructure funds. And these are considered requirements. If we are talking about desks, we are talking about availing teachers and expanding classrooms gradually and being done by government. I think it is an effort being made compared to many countries. If our government is able to consider all these aspects of equipment and infrastructure requirement, I think they are quite okay. And they may not service what is really needed. The other questions that have been asked about universities and colleges, it's also important. I think we have discussed the basic education so extensively that we have even forgotten about the universities and colleges. And the CS will be able to guide the country accordingly. But we think the universities and colleges are more flexible, and they could even resume earlier than expected than basic education institution. And that has been put into a lot of considerable considerations. Now, there is a big elephant of parents being ready. I'm sure if a pronouncement is made to resume schools, there will be now the politics of, oh, parents are not ready, there are children who cannot pay fees. No. The issue here is that we are not going to wait, and the government should not wait for parents to be ready. The Constitution of Kenya is very clear, Section 53, that every child has a right to education. So once schools are reopened, it is the right of every child to walk to school, find a teacher, find a classroom, find a desk, and find learning materials. That is in our Constitution, and that is in the law. Now to go around again and begin debating about preparedness of parents, I think we will be exaggerating the drama and politics of COVID-19.
Okay.
Right now, let us expressly think about resumption. The moment the curve is flattened completely, resumption. The moment the minister makes the necessary pronouncement, resumption, and support for the framework that will be put in place. Because most of the activities that will be conducted in school will not be done by the government entirely. If we are talking about providing sanitizers, soaps, and all that, that is domestic procurement at the school level, and the level of preparedness of every school. And every school may be subject to thorough inspection to ensure that they are prepared at the very minimum. So indeed, I think at this point, Trevor, on this subject of schools resumption, it is now a question of Kenyans thinking deeply and preparing for resumption of learning at all levels of education. The moment the government pronounces, remember, the government will not negotiate with citizens in terms of the law. Because when the government closed down, it was on the basis of data over a highly infectious disease alert. Now, once the government gets the correct data, that it is no longer necessary to prolong the closure of school, it shall pronounce, reopening. And once reopening is pronounced, read the law. It is illegal to hold a child at home. Children must go to school. That's a fact for sure. And once schools are reopened, teachers will move back to school and they will teach. We will be able to consider several challenges, the 4 months that have been lost, the standard 8 and Form 4 examination classes, the future of all the learners in their respective grades, and how we shall walk and look at all this. Those are things now that are tickling our mind, even as a union. What is it now that we are going to do as teachers, assuming we resume in January, we resume earlier, we resume next week, we resume next month. We are ready for work anytime. The moment this directive is pronounced in accordance with the laws of this country. And so parents should prepare. We don't need politics. And Janet Mudoni, don't start another debate of the rights of this and that. It is already spelled out in the Constitution. Once the minister pronounces the reopening of schools, all children must be in school, and we will resume full total normal learning.
Honorable Sossion, I have like 15 questions to run by you, so we have to make our comments very brief. There's 2 more I need to bring up right now. Let's bring up 2 more videos.
The school should start reopening from now in phases, where finalists in colleges, campuses, in higher learning institutions, and other even technical institutions, and the Form 4's Class A should be considered first and given the first priority, and the rest will follow.
CS needs to have a discussion with principals to ensure that schools are ready, and the government needs to also ensure that the money that is needed for purchase of more furniture, so that there is social distancing in schools when they reopen, should be dispersed to schools as early as now. I don't think that schools are ready to host students back. It is time that the CS took this seriously.
Opening the schools right now will be putting students at risk and country at large. My question goes to the NAT Secretary General. Which measures have you put in place to ensure that when the schools are reopened, our students will be safe?
I think it is the right time for schools to be reopened because the COVID-19 cases are going down. And again, there are many Kenyans who depend on schools in one way or another. We have the non-teaching staffs, the BM teachers, the suppliers, among other people whose lives have stalled just because of the closure of schools.
Children have stayed home for so long. University students are also home. Some of these students cannot even now remember their teachers. Some of them will get lost on their way to the school. Some of them don't remember the classes they are in, the subjects they take. And if we say that they continue staying at home, we are ruining our education system.
Trevor, we are in a hurry for no good reason. We've all agreed that one complete academic year is lost. And therefore, we should actually be very much now sober and relaxed that we are working with possibly next year, March, now that first term was already over. And therefore, the government should take advantage of this acceptance, though sad, and organize itself in order, so that by around next year, February, we should now be talking about when are we opening the schools. Why are we in a hurry when we are not quite certain that our children are going to be safe in school?
All right, Janet, closing remarks. Very brief.
No, I'm saying that a lot of the times the stakeholders really lose the value of advising the minister or even providing some critique, and they are tempted to show support and solidarity, which is all good, but I think it's always good for stakeholders to really give their input. And for me, I would say that I'm expecting not more 5 things at least when the next press conference is held. I want to hear about the safety measures that have been done in schools. And I don't want to hear a lot has been done. No, I think let's talk about, this is the level of preparedness. Is it we at 70 or 80%? And let's avoid the general word of saying a lot has been done. And I think too, we want to hear about phased out reopening of schools. We also want very clear messages and communications to parents so that they also remain prepared. I'm sure you can hear the concerns about we ate the school fees and so on. I really like the commitment of Sosion to the right to education, although we know that the cost of secondary education, especially in this country, has been a thorn in the flesh, and therefore parents must be thinking about it unless maybe that Friday we are going to be hearing a fresh pronouncement by the CS that maybe something about school fees or something like that, but a clear communication need to be done to the parents so that they are prepared. And number 4, we need to hear a catching up mechanism. What is in store for catching up? Children have been home a lot. How do we bring them to speed? How do we socialize them and bring them to the climate of either beginning afresh or something like that? And finally, COVID, the multi-sectoral approach. Where is health? Should there be an incident in school? Where is the health? Where is protection? Where is nutrition and everybody else? I think we really need to hear about those 5 critical issues. And finally, there's a lot of guidance that has been given to countries. Can we hear about line by line what level of preparedness or what precautions have been put in place in schools? And of course, I do not want to remain shy that there's a lot of investment that is going to be needed. We have been in this country when government really struggles with the competition grant, and therefore we don't want to imagine that we are going to be building new schools. No, that is a lie. That is not going to be happening. What are the practical steps? When we talk about preparing ourselves, what exactly do we mean? So that then parents don't have expectations that you are saying you are preparing. We were expecting that we would find 3 more streams. When we talk about preparedness, what exactly are we telling parents tonight?
Okay. All right. Honorable Sosion, closing remarks, 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. The framework of reopening of schools, the details and everything else shall be pronounced by the minister. And it will answer many questions that and fears that people have. This is a disease that still the Ministry of Health, I believe, will continue monitoring the trends even in schools and the health status of learners in school. And this being an infectious disease, and it is a war that requires concerted efforts, and it is a disease whose projection cannot be predicted. It is good that the country is in solidarity in terms of the approach to issues. And I think this is what has been demonstrated very, very strongly in the sector. And as you can see, at the very tail end of this pandemic, we are working as a team. And for us, we are not shy to express solidarity with the CS when he's leading us properly and is consulting us very well. And there are still consultations that are ongoing.
Yeah.
And issues of catch-up mechanisms. And I talked of innovation. We shall work very innovatively. All these things will arise from what we call the framework that the CS will be able to make pronouncement. Whether the phased out, giving priority to Form 4s, from the question that have arisen, Trevor, those are things that will be contained in the framework. All what we are discussing now is the principle, the mechanism. Let Kenyans prepare. And if Kenyans are prepared, the details will be outlined properly. And
Okay.
I think there will be no confusion, and there should be no confusion. And there's a huge question.
Okay.
How sure are we that learners will be safe in terms of health in school? The World Health Organization guidelines and protocols shall still remain in force while learners are in school to
Okay.
ensure that they're healthy and safe. So the issues of business of suppliers,
All
that
right.
actually businesses have been affected with closures of school, is the reality. All
All right.
sectors
Honorable Sosion, 1
indeed
minute is
have
up.
been affected. And
All right.
as we finish my last few seconds, because we have been out of school for 6 months, there will be need during the first few lessons and the first few moments in school to reorient everyone and get back to the mood of schooling.
Okay.
That is a profession of business of teachers. So
Okay.
there will be a lot that will go into preparation. So I
Understood.
think now the phase where we are in terms of reopening of schools is what we call preparation phase. Preparation and preparation. So everybody must actually prepare. And I think this has been a very exciting engagement with this issue of COVID. And we invite Kenyans that beyond this, let us engage more constructively. And a lot is needed. We've learned lots of lessons out of COVID. Our large classes in this country, we've got to rationalize. Our education system, we may have to review and radically reorient ourselves. Those are issues going into the future.
Okay.
But the immediate ones, everybody must prepare. We don't want excuses of parents not being ready in case a pronouncement is made.
Got it.
So
Thank you.
everybody must prepare. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Honorable
teachers
Sosion.
are ready.
All right, thank you so much. That's Honorable Wilson Sosion. He's a NAT Secretary General, also a nominated Member of Parliament and a Committee of Education member. Now, I have some clarification on the Board of Management funds that you've been asking about. Indimuli Kahi, who's the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, is also part of the COVID-19 Education Response Committee. He says that the money was credited to the banks today. Therefore, there might be some delays because of the difference in banks, but you will eventually